Hello and welcome to A Slice of Life Hour with me, Eugene Low, for your dose of do-it-yourself or DIY motivation. Happening here on 938 Live on Mondays and helping us help ourselves. I've always got some help in from my guests, and today let's hear from Andrew Chu. He is a principal trainer and consultant, CEO as well, consultant and coach of Life Training and Development LLP. He's also a certified hypnotherapist and a disc trainer, and he'll be telling us more about the keys to happiness, the DNA of happy people. Andrew has extensive experience in the educational sector, and over the last 25 years, he held senior positions in the Ministry of Education in Singapore as principal of a secondary school, cluster superintendent, and deputy director for co-curricular activities. And he's doing some training as well for teachers these days, equipping them with the skills needed to help our children learn more about life as well, increasingly becoming more important. And there are a few things that we strive for more than happiness, isn't it, Andrew?
Yeah. I suppose top on the list, if we look at human beings, most people will tell you that they all strive to be happy, maybe to avoid suffering, So I will start from the position that most human beings would love to be happy. And maybe to frame our discussion this afternoon is to make a distinction between maybe what gives one person pleasure versus happiness.
Because most living things, even animals, they are driven by pleasure, isn't it? I mean, not necessarily on a psychological level, but we do observe them, striving towards things that give them physical pleasure at least, right? And avoiding pain.
Yes. Yeah. And I just want to say that many people try probably mix up pleasure versus happiness. And there's this attempt to say that when good things happen, therefore I'm happy. When bad things happen, therefore I'm unhappy. I would like to define happiness as a state of mind. Okay, so it is not what happened, but our response to what happened probably that is important.
Okay, so when you say state of mind, do you mean something that is fairly consistent?
Yes. Eugene, I remembered a story you shared during your slice of life, about how this father who was in the shoe business decided to send his two sons to go to this remote village to look at the possibility of setting up a shoe factory there. So the two sons went and came back. Elder son came back, told the father, Father, let's not waste our time because nobody wears shoe there. And of course, the younger son enthusiastically told the father, I think there's great opportunity out here, because if we can go in and set a factory, we may be the prime mover. So I thought that a good start would be probably the perspective that one holds, as we can see in the story between the elder son and the younger son.
It's our response to external stimuli.
Yeah. And that between stimulus and response, I think we do have a choice. Maybe the difficult part about having a choice is that many a times we do not exercise this choice consciously. Scientists have once said that about 10% of human beings probably activate their mind consciously. The other 90% is probably in the subconscious. So how we make decisions sometimes could be a product of where we came from, our past memories, our past experience, So for example, if something in the past trigger off an unhappy feeling, a similar incident may trigger that feeling manifold. Yeah.
Right. So it actually comes from the past.
Yeah.
And it sits in our subconscious and continues to strain our emotional peace.
Haunt us, I would say.
Yeah.
So someone has once said that until you make peace with your past, the present is going to be difficult. Yeah.
Okay. So this state of mind of happiness, it's not about being happy all the time, right? I mean, that's something that I think some of us get confused about. You know, we think happy people must be happy all the time. They must be always laughing and they must be always jovial, but that's not the case.
I would put it this way, that happy people generally has a basic philosophy that things do happen. Okay, I mean, good things do happen, bad things do happen. It is not so much about that external event, but how we relate to the event. So, for example, if something do not happen well, what is my response? We have often heard cases of people who are less privileged, but who are generally quite happy and contented with their life, and people who have more and who are still struggling, with this concept called happiness. So I really think it's a state of mind, and that we all have a choice in how we respond to what happens around us.
It's how we rationalize, right?
Yeah.
The things that happen to us. It's interesting because I'm reminded of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and right at the top, where it includes self-actualization and all that, it also includes something about being able to accept the facts of life.
Yeah, I think this thing about acceptance, it's interesting. In fact, I usually say that when things happen, maybe a good approach is to do a rain check on actually what happened, RAIN, and using that letter of the alphabet, I would like to suggest maybe a 4-step approach. First of all is to recognize that maybe something has happened, and whether there's an emotion that goes with that event. So, for example, something happened, I am angry, let's say. So recognizing that event and the emotion. And then the next one is exactly what you shared, Eugene, about accepting it. Acknowledging that, yes, at this moment I'm angry, something happened, I accept it. And the next step is which is to investigate what could be possible cause for the event or for the emotion. And of course, the last one is the most difficult. It's called non-attachment. How do we, after seeing it, understanding it, let go?
Okay.
And the surrender that I spoke about the last round.
Yes. So this is something that can be applied when we feel sort of dissonance in our emotional peace, right? And I suppose the difference between people who are happier and the people who are not so happy, perhaps, is that middle space, right? Where how long they stay in that wilderness. But because we all do, we're human, right? So our immediate reaction would be to feel injustice, would be to feel offended, would be to feel anger.
Yeah.
But then if you're able to go through that process and hopefully, over time, with practice, learn to let go of that. I mean, certain things that, we can let go of. Of course, certain things we can do to alleviate the situation.
Yeah. I like the part that you use, I feel angry versus I am angry. So anger is an emotion. We are not that emotion. I mean, we all, like you say, occasionally, if you are in the wilderness, it is natural to feel sad sometimes. The question is how fast you can bounce out of it. And I think this rain check does help one put things in perspective.
All right. We're chatting today with Andrew Chu, who is CEO, principal trainer, consultant, and coach of Life Training and Development LLP. He's also a certified hypnotherapist and a disc trainer, talking more about happiness today, the keys to happiness, the DNA of happy people. We'll continue to chat with Andrew and talk about what those keys are and how to perhaps program that DNA into our system. Here on the Slice of Life Hour with me, Eugene Loh, on 938 Live. Do stay with me. What is this thing called happiness? I mean, we all know what being happy feels like and what it means. But when we are unhappy sometimes, we can be quite puzzled as to how to get out of that state. Most of us also, like my guest mentioned earlier, don't even consciously think about what is making us feel this way and how we can get out of that state. We're kind of like resigned to, hear a lot of people saying things like the ups and downs of life, c'est la vie, and things like that. And we learn to, we hear all these messages from other people, right? And we learn to accept that, life is hard, life is tough, we are unhappy sometimes, so there's nothing we can do about it. But there is, of course, and Andrew Chu is here to help us think about that and perhaps program those keys to happiness into our DNA. Andrew is CEO, principal trainer, consultant, and coach of Life Training and Development LLP. So, what are those keys to happiness, Andrew, and how can we program them into our system?
Okay. Eugene has mentioned earlier, right? Mm-hmm. I said that one of the key to happiness is probably the perspective we hold towards events that happen. Things will happen. It is our response to those events. And of course, the rain check of recognizing an issue, the emotions, acknowledging it. I think sometimes that's difficult, the acceptance, and then getting to look deeper to investigate what could be possible causes. And of course, finally, the part to be able to let go if it does not serve us. I think that's a good start when it comes to, the DNA to happiness.
Right. Acknowledging, you mentioned, is the probably the hardest part of all. Why do you think it's so difficult for many of us?
Well, I suppose, like you say, even animals, right, avoid things that are difficult, that are painful. But pain sometimes is inevitable. And I just want to say that, suffering is actually a choice. And it's a result of maybe pain plus trying to resist it. Yeah, so while pain is inevitable, we may have to learn how to kind of accept it. So the first stage that most people will go through when it comes to acceptance is denial, I suppose. Yeah, before we come to understand that, if we can look at this issue in perspective, maybe it's not a mountain after all, it's just a molehill,
Right. Okay. So how do we learn to develop this perspective?
Okay. Maybe the approach will be to increasingly make conscious the aspect of this thing called our mind. Scientists say we use about 10% of our mind. So if we can strengthen the mind, do some mental housekeeping, just like if we want to exercise a bicep, we go to the gym, right?
Okay. So
how much time do we spend actually, exercising the mind?
So working out our mental resilience.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so there are some exercises then to continue using that analogy.
Yeah, yours. Once I heard this story on A Slice of Life about the grandfather who told the grandson, or rather the grandson told the grandfather that he had this dream, right? That he dreamt every night, and in this dream he dreamt of two wolves. A good one and a bad one. Remember that story?
Yes.
And then they were fighting, and of course the grandson wanted to find out from the grandfather which wolf will finally win the battle. And of course the grandfather wisely said, the one that you feed. So likewise, we need to be aware of some of the things that we feed into our mind. If we read and we get connected with things that are depressive, it is quite natural that one will go down that spiral.
Yes.
So, how do we encourage someone? Probably to maybe read things that are more uplifting. There are plenty of stories of people who have turned odds into opportunities. And I think they can be rather inspiring. A Slice of Life is a good start, I think.
Thank you very much, Andrew. It's an eternal tussle for most of us, right?
Yes.
This between the good wolf and a bad wolf
Yeah.
in that story.
Sure.
But it's about where we place our focus and which part we strengthen. So in any situation, there's always that choice to choose the better, more enabling perspective. But I think a lot of us allow barriers to come in and make the waters rather murky. Things like, morality and guilt and things like, obligation. And we feel very strongly about these. They're very deeply rooted, and we feel sometimes that's very wrong. Everything is black and white. and that's why sometimes we are unable to get out. We're unable to let go.
Yeah, I agree with you. If we are mentally not flexible, things that are not flexible may break, so the idea about a strong tree that can fall during thunderstorm, as versus maybe the grass on that goes with the flow of the wind.
Right.
Yeah, so one is this, but I like your image about this thing called a murky water, most of the time, when something happens and it's murky, the more we try to
stir it,
and it becomes murkier. So
right.
the maybe the secret is to do the opposite.
Yeah,
how to just let it settle for a while,
right.
and to look a little bit deeper.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, just maybe go with the flow and let the flow of the river just wash the grime away. Whatever method works for you, right? Because it's quite individual.
Yes.
But I think ultimately it's this ability to look beyond your current situation, whatever's stressing you at the moment, and just take things in perspective.
Yes, and a good metaphor someone once gave was that there will be dark clouds, but clouds can go away, and behind the clouds there will be the blue sky, or what we call a silver lining.
Yeah. It's a natural law, really. I mean, renewal in the 4 seasons and all that. We see it happening all around us, and we feel that it doesn't happen with human beings, but it actually does as well. It's quite universal, really. We'll get into more of that later with you, Andrew, but we've got to go for headlines, sports and business here on 938 Live. A Slice of Life Hour with me, Eugene Low, on 938 Live continues in about 15 minutes. Hello, welcome into A Slice of Life Hour with me, Eugene Low, for your dose of do-it-yourself motivation. And today we're talking about happiness, and a crucial part or crucial ingredient of happiness, or a state of happiness, is mental resilience. But often we don't think about that, because when we think about happiness, we think of a high state of emotion. We typically associate it with laughter, good feelings, chemicals being produced in the brain and so forth. But when bad times happen to us, and mentally we're able to reconcile the situation and move on from that, that is a huge part of staying as happy as we can through those difficult times as well. So tell us more about training our mental strength. My guest is Andrew Chu, who is a CEO, principal trainer, consultant and coach of life training and development. He's also a certified hypnotherapist and a DISC trainer. Andrew.
Yeah. Eugene, interestingly, scientists have discovered that actually there are 4 states of mind. It has got to do with our brain waves frequency, and they call it the alpha state, the beta, delta, and theta. Okay, the general state that most people are in a day-to-day life is the beta state of mind. Generally allows us to think, to make decisions, but on high beta, it can lead to overthinking, stress, anxiety. And this is what we usually advise, that if one can bring that state to an alpha state of mind. Maybe let me just briefly describe what this feels like. Or, when you read a book, or when you are exercising, you're doing something you enjoy, right? It's a light relaxation state, and in that state of mind, the mind is more able to make good decisions, creativity, ideas like that. Yeah. So the trick is how to move from beta state to alpha state of mind. Yeah.
Is this what some people describe as having that white space? When you are involved in something or you're in the flow of something, and you're not bothered by external thoughts. And that's when your brain is most receptive to coming up with ideas.
Feel blissful, despite whatever happens.
Okay.
Yeah. So the challenge is how to move from beta state to an alpha state. I think maybe the very first thing is to recognize that, when we are busy in the hustle and bustle of things, there will be time where, the brain goes into what I call an overdrive. And like you say, how do you create that space? One way is to stop, and to come down, do something that we enjoy, so that space, that mental space of going into the alpha state will take place. So how do you produce more of that, is probably what we need to do.
Right. We create that safety barrier.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So it becomes like a habit. It's something that we consciously have to do.
It becomes a habit of mind, And this is why many people have said that the mind is stronger than the body, if we only know how to optimize the use of our mind. Yeah.
So we create one way to pause. It would be to
do things that we enjoy, or probably to pause and probably remove ourselves from that particular incident.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I think that's why occasionally you hear people saying that, when you are in the heat of something, your breathing gets shallower and, faster. So the thing is to take a few deep breaths, so that we can get out of that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the more we are in the habit of doing this,
the
next time something happens, this may be our natural, habitual, conscious response to things that do not turn as well. This alpha state of mind.
So this is another way we are programming the DNA of happy people into our own system, is by daily conscious effort.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no easy way. You can't pop a pill.
Yeah, I suppose there's no easy way. So the main thing is to be conscious of the fact that we have control over how we feel.
Yes.
But it has to be done step by step, like I say, going to this mental gym, of strengthening the mind.
Yes.
There's another state which is very interesting, which is at deep relaxation state called the theta state. Being a certified hypnotherapist, in a deep relaxation state, usually the thinking will not take place. I mean, the critical thinking does not take place, so we no longer judge ourselves. And this is where an individual can recollect some of the things, your previous experience and memories. Yeah.
Okay,
and
so
that's a powerful state too, I thought.
It's more spontaneous.
It's more spontaneous.
You're not trying too hard to think about anything.
You literally let go and surrender, I said.
and allow
and therefore flow.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, with whatever comes.
So a lot of the limitations of the conscious mind don't come into play. I mean, during that state, because that's what we want during that state. Actually,
I think the thing is a balance. We need that consciousness to make decision, but at the same time, there is a certain degree where we should expand this conscious space into some things that we are not so conscious about. So, if a person gets angry, right? It would be good for him to look deep and say that, actually, this feeling of anger normally occurs when I feel unjust. And this could have a seed way back in the past when the person is younger. Yeah. So being able to find out that it's actually a pattern, right?
Yeah.
We can then break the pattern. Yeah.
Again, it's being able to acknowledge that part,
Yes.
giving ourselves that space to really think about things. I mean, most of us tend to bypass that stage, right? And that's why we go straight from, feeling angry and unjust to a negative reaction. And that's usually, we call the heat of the moment or whatever, allowing our negative emotions to, chart our direction. That's when we kind of like say or do things you might regret later, right?
Sure.
So we really have to train ourselves to make it a habit to get into that space again, to contemplate. And once we are in that space, then I think most of us would be able to think quite logically about the situation and come to a more, positive decision.
Yes. The other thing which I thought, besides strengthening, right, this part of our perspective and our mind of how we respond to things, is that if we can understand that we have a pattern towards reacting to certain things, right, we can break a pattern. Let me see if I can give you an example. I was talking to this individual, 22 years old, and he was sharing with me about some of his relationship issue, boyfriend-girlfriend issue, and that he doesn't seem to be quite able to keep a relationship. So I asked him, are you aware what could have caused it? His sensing is that, he needs to control certain things. Okay, and as he got a little bit more relaxed, and he's able to trace back, he actually traced the issue back to as young as when he was 7 years old, 5 years old. Yeah, when a similar incident like this happened, not totally resolved, the same emotions get triggered, later in life.
A lot of these things have their roots in our childhood, right?
Yes.
Because that's when we kind of like absorb a lot of the messages that we get from other people in our environment without thinking. And our caregivers, of course, are integral to that. I mean, they're not totally to blame, of course.
Sure.
But yes, if in our childhood we were taught to be perhaps fearful, doubtful about ourselves, not being open, if we were perhaps burnt, when we were being candid or frank, we learn not to be frank and candid, yeah? So things like that. But, of course, we're not children anymore.
Sure.
And that's when we can start to think about changing or reprogramming ourselves.
Once we are informed, like what you say, once we recognize that we are no longer that child, then we have an opportunity to take a different decision or to choose differently. Yeah. So we need not be subjected to the same fear that we were subject to when we were a child.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a platitude, but it really happens inside. A lot of it happens inside. In fact, most of it happens inside because, if you're feeling bad about something, yes, the initial reaction was caused by a certain situation, a person or an incident, but then the maintenance of that feeling is really of your own doing.
Yeah.
So you have to go to examine the cause of that. Perhaps go back to your childhood as well.
And then, of course, finally, after we know what could have caused it, right, is to have a different response. That we do have a choice of choosing differently. Yeah, and I think that part of it has got to do with this thing called non-attachment, not being too attached, even to things that we are happy about at the moment, because those moments do go away. Yeah, so if there is a very strong desire for something, and that desire kind of, or that thing disappear, then we'll feel unhappy.
So it's taking a long-term view of things and realizing that, nothing lasts forever. I mean, good times and bad times don't last either, right?
Yes.
So, there is strength to be found in that kind of, philosophy as well.
Yeah, so this balance, about how we keep our balance, right, despite things happening around us, is something that got to do with our strengthening of our mind. I'll just repeat that again. And that we all have a choice if we can, first of all, recognize what is the issue and maybe the emotion, acknowledge it, like you say, Eugene, accept it, and then investigate, and then letting go.
All right. And that was the rain check that you shared earlier that I find very useful as well. Just to reiterate, that rain check is to recognize first what's causing that feeling in you, acknowledge it and accept it, investigate the cause. I think that's very important as well, because very often we don't want to think about what caused it, and very often we don't want to think about it because we are feeling guilty, or we think perhaps we had a role to play in it. In fact, most of the time we do, right? A lot of the things that happen to us that make us unhappy, we do have a role to play, but we don't want to acknowledge it. And because we don't want to acknowledge it, we continue to allow it to affect us. Yeah. So a lot of the time, I think we have to accept that, what we did brought us to where we are today. And that's just logical. But moving forward, we can tweak certain things to ensure that we move forward in future, right?
Yeah. With regard to this thing, right? I love what the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung has to say. He says, whatever we resist will persist. Yeah. So sometimes this ability to let go, understanding that life is broader than just that moment,
yes,
is important. And maybe an attitude of appreciating what we have does help. Yeah, so if good things does happen, let's appreciate it. Let's enjoy it. Yeah. Sometimes we also tend to be in a mood of living either in the past or in the future. Yeah. Yes. So this ability to probably be present and to enjoy what we have. If things do not go right, just do the rain check. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew Chu, who is my guest today, and he's the CEO, principal trainer, consultant, and coach of Life Training and Development. You can find more information on the internet, I suppose. And this has been a Slice of Life Hour. If you'd like to share something with me on the show, do get in touch via email. It's eugene@mediacorp.com.sg. I'm Eugene Low, and this has been a Slice of Life Hour on 938 Live.